Good morning and welcome to our 18th annual exhibit of hydrogen and fuel cell technology here at the Handover Fair. We've been here since 1995, introducing this very innovative technology and talking with the consumers that are interested in it and talking with people who are knowledgeable. And on that issue, we have a very knowledgeable person to talk to. We are going to be talking to Marge Ryan, who's market analyst at FuelCell Today, one of the most knowledgeable persons I've met who really knows the gamut of this market. So please welcome with me Marge Ryan, market analyst at FuelCell Today.
Okay.
Good morning.
Hi, Brian.
So, I suppose not everyone's familiar with FuelCell Today. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about what it is, how it got started, and what you guys do there?
FuelCell Today, well, we're basically a website, so everything we do is at our website. We're based in the UK, and we're a source of up-to-date news and analysis on fuel cells and their markets around the world. There are 3 full-time staff, our manager Dan Carter, Johnny Wing, and me, the 2 analysts. Mm-hmm. And yeah, well, as I say, we do a range of analysis and news, and everything on our website is completely free to download, so we don't charge for any of it.
Oh, so it's free, okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. What sort of, you mentioned analysis, of course, what type of analysis are required, and what sort of analysis do you do?
We do quite a range, actually, from shorter pieces that come out quite often. Every 2 weeks we do an opinion piece on some aspect of fuel cells or their markets, ranging right up to our premium publication, which is the annual industry review, which basically covers fuel cell shipments and megawatts installed over the last 5 years. And that comes out once a year, and it's free to download, or you can request a hard copy. And I think Johnny has actually distributed some hard copies. Yeah. And, well, we also do a number of surveys on specific markets for fuel cells that give us, I think, perhaps a deeper insight into some of these markets.
So what are the major markets that you may focus on? What are the markets that you see, the different markets?
The thing with fuel cells is they're such an incredibly versatile power source, and they can be used in such a wide variety of ways for such a wide variety of applications that it actually makes it quite difficult to do systematic analysis of fuel cell commercialization. In our industry review, we do our top-line analysis by application area, so splitting it into stationary power, fuel cells for transportation, and then portable fuel cells. We then break that down further by fuel cell type and by geographical region. Increasingly, we are also starting to look at specific end-use markets for fuel cells. For example, consumer products, transport and logistics, the military, public authorities. And all these people could be an end market for fuel cells, but use them in a variety of ways. And then another thing that we do is country surveys. So we release full-length reports every year looking at specific countries and their needs that fuel cells could possibly meet, and also their development work in fuel cells.
So there's a lot of countries on the globe. What countries have you focused on in the past? What countries have you studied?
This year we've released reports on China and Finland so far.
Radically different nations, of course.
Yes, yeah. I mean, their energy contexts are poles apart, as everybody knows. But I think the interesting thing is that both countries are interested in fuel cells, are actively developing fuel cells, and have very good reasons for doing so.
Is this because there's a fuel cell solution to every country's needs, or is it because they're adapted to specific countries' needs?
Yeah, absolutely. That's correct. I mean, you can't have a one-size-fits-all solution, and the fuel cell solutions that will emerge will be radically different. But that's great because it really takes advantage of the flexibility of the technology.
So, what is the news from China? What do they do there with the technology?
Well, as everybody knows, China's energy demand is soaring, and they use a lot of oil and coal. But this is something that they're not complacent with this situation. The government is seeking to introduce more renewables. The problem is that the electrical grid, is not well integrated, and it's struggling to keep up with demand in the country. So introducing more variable sources of energy is really going to make grid stability and grid balancing pressing problems. And an elegant solution to this is to use the excess grid energy to generate hydrogen for transportation, which allows you to have a double benefit. You can clean up your electricity supply and decarbonize transportation, reducing demand for both coal and oil. And this is a solution China is aware of. They've been developing automotive fuel cells since the 1990s, and they're still very active in that. Most of their major fuel cell demonstrations to date have been in transportation. And this is financially supported by the government, but the point is that it's development of fuel cell vehicles specifically for the domestic market.
Are there any other applications that have become popular in China, uses of fuel cell technology?
Not to date, but we see a tremendous potential in backup power for telecoms base stations. The country's mobile phone network is growing incredibly quickly. And I think there are already over 1 million cell sites in the country, with 10 to 20,000 new cell sites being added each year. And of course, the grid's not reliable and it doesn't reach everywhere, so you need backup power for each of these cell sites. And every year, there are between 5 and 8 billion US dollars of battery sales just into China's telecoms market for backup power. So that's, there's a great potential in that market for fuel cells, which are a better solution.
You mentioned two countries you've been focusing on. One is China and the other is Finland. So what's happening in Finland with our Finnish friends?
With our Finnish friends. Finland is a very interesting case. It's a fascinating country. It has no domestic fossil fuel resources. So for decades, it's been maximizing the use of its energy sources. It's developed particular strengths in combined heat and power and in the use of biomass. And I think there are a lot of potential synergies with fuel cells in Finland's domestic energy supply. But beyond that, Finland holds a leading position as an energy technology exporter. And I think perhaps their interest in fuel cells is to do with the export market, is to maintain their position as a leading exporter of energy technology to the rest of the world.
Is there some correlation between innovation within a nation like Finland and the fact that they don't have enough natural resources? It seems to me one can be complacent if there's a lot of, let's say, oil in your country. You may not think about the most futuristic and innovative energy resource. So is there some correlation there between what the Finnish do and what they're trying to export?
I'm sure there is. I'm sure the sort of inventiveness that they've needed to develop is helping a lot. But we're also looking generally at the Nordic countries and even a country like Norway that does actually have a lot of oil is innovating in clean energy and is also developing fuel cells. So, some correlation certainly, but I think there are shades of grey in that.
Yeah, I'm always amazed because sometimes you suppose there is a correlation, but in fact, some nations with immense quantities of natural resources are leaders among our contributors here. So it really is a strange thing to explain.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I think again it just comes down to the fact that there's so many benefits to be had from switching to alternative energy supplies that most countries can actually capitalize on some benefit, whether it's reducing carbon footprint, energy security, efficiency, and just meeting demand. Any of those factors could drive innovation. And for Finland, I think it's taking advantage of the export market that will be there.
When we're talking about Finland here, is this government and research driven, or are there specific companies involved, commercial enterprises, for example?
There is a government-supported fuel cell development program that you can find out more about from the Finnish pavilion, and I do urge you to visit that because it's very interesting. There are a number of Finnish companies participating in the fuel cell program, and these companies are international names, and they're looking to develop fuel cell products with international supply chains for international markets.
We've talked about China, we've talked about Finland. Are there other countries that you keep your eye on?
There are, absolutely. I just want to mention some names in Finland, I think, just to illustrate my point. Wärtsilä, for example, it powers every third ship in the world, services every second. It's a major player, and it is looking to develop fuel cell technology. Oritsella also supplies power plants which use a range of fuels, now even flexi-fuel. And they're looking at fuel cell technology both to sell into the marine market and for power plants, specifically in the sub-megawatt range, as they believe that fuel cells could very well be the most efficient and the best technology to meet customer needs in that range, below a megawatt. Another example from Finland is Cargotec, a leading global supplier of cargo handling equipment in ports and harbours. And they're also involved in the Finnish fuel cell program, looking at developing fuel cell powered cargo handling equipment. So they're just a couple of examples.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now back to the international perspective here.
Yeah.
We've done China, talked about Finland. What are the other nations you like to keep track of?
We're trying to keep track of all of them, but yeah, it's a big job. But, if the Finland report, or the report on Finland, is a first in a series of 5 on the Nordic countries, because I think, as we've alluded to, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in the Nordic countries. So that series of reports will be coming out this year. We're keeping an eye on Korea, on Japan, on the US, Canada, and very much on Germany as well, which is obviously of great interest. In terms of country surveys, we're quite open to ideas. So if you believe that there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in a country that we should be looking at, we're quite happy for you to contact us with suggestions as we're looking to fill our order book for 2013.
To use your expression again, to keep your eye, you've been keeping your eye on the Handover Fair for quite some time. And here we are, Handover Fair 2012. What's new? What's missing? What have you seen that surprised you or perhaps opened your eyes to some new aspect in this industry?
The Handover Fair, I think, is it's an incredible opportunity to learn. And every time we come here, we just see so much, and it's such a stimulating experience. And I think one of the standout things this year has been the sheer number of electrolyzer companies that are exhibiting. Very, very prominent presence. And I think it's because of this growing realization around the world that we need hydrogen. There just isn't another energy carrier that's going to be able to replace oil, that will be as flexible and as beneficial. And I think perhaps the issues with variable renewable sources like wind and solar power and the problems of integrating them with grids and so on, I think has brought a lot of attention to hydrogen. And I do feel there is a realization that we will need hydrogen. Hydrogen is not just an option for the energy, for our energy future. It is actually the only game in town. I mean, these are electrolyzer companies that are, many of them, actually making money. So that, I think, is very, very positive. Electrolyzers, of course, being a key enabling technology for fuel cells. So, that's been a particular standout feature of this year's show, I think.
Do you think there's any correlation to the specific subsidies or structures of the energy market? I'm referring, for example, to Germany. In Germany, there are subsidies that allow people to add solar cells to the roofs of their houses. The issue being, of course, they're allowed to sell the electricity back to the grid. It's a privileged price, which helps them to pay off for this contribution to our energy supply. But there's no guarantee that we actually need the energy when they feed it into the grid. Yeah. And the option that some people are discussing, there are some displays here and people with products that want to deal with this issue. The option is to convert that photovoltaic energy directly into hydrogen and to use it on demand. So do you think, I mean, this is a German structure. We are subsidizing indirectly the use of photovoltaic cells and solar energy, but we're not optimally using it. You know, does that sound plausible? And is there a country that does that better than we do here in Germany?
I wouldn't like to say that. I think Germany is probably at the forefront of development, but the thing about renewable energies is, as you say, that they're unpredictable and you don't always need the energy when it's produced. You do need a storage medium. Pumped hydro can only go so far, and I think that's a particular problem with Germany, is it's so restricted in terms of its storage capacity for energy. So you need an alternative storage medium, and there's been a lot of mention at this year's show, particularly, of the potential for power to gas, which is that you use this excess energy to produce hydrogen, which you then actually inject into the gas grid, and use your natural gas grid as an energy store. And the gas grid, of course, carries much more energy than the electrical grid does, because you'd need more energy for space heating and for hot water than you use typically for electricity in the average home. So the capacity for energy storage in the natural gas grid is immense. That is being recognized. DLR is doing research on that issue. That's been recognized in Germany. So I think that's a solution we'll probably see emerging here, simply because of the fact that you mentioned and the fact that there is no real alternative form of energy storage. I mean, hydrogen is a great integrator. What it will do is it will remove the silos between electricity generation, transportation, and heat. And hydrogen will allow you to integrate all these things. And by allowing you to create an integrated energy system without barriers, it allows for the optimal efficiency in using energy. The other thing I think, which is perhaps a longer-term consideration, is the fact that many countries are past peak oil. Natural gas is filling some of the gap. It's a finite resource. It can't last. And yet, at all the time, energy demand is growing. So we're going to be in a situation in a few decades' time where we have to turn off the oil, turn off the gas for whatever reason. And then we're going to have to make as much use as possible of our installed capacity of energy generation, be that wind power or whatever. So what you're really going to want to do is use that energy in the most efficient way possible to extract the maximum value from your installed base. And I think that then comes back to fuel cells, simply because the efficiency of the technology is so much greater. And that is, in a few years' time, or perhaps a few decades' time, that is going to become a crucial consideration, I think.
As always, very informative, Marge. The question the audience has, of course, is how do they get in touch with you? How do they receive your documentation, your analysts, and your all the information that you collect? Available on the website? Available on the website,
www.fuelcelltoday.com. We're both walking the floor today and tomorrow. Get in touch with us while we're here, or otherwise through the website. And as I say, everything you'll find there is free to use. And we're always open to comments and suggestions. So anybody who'd like to get in touch with us, if you feel there's a particularly interesting market that you would like us to do some analysis on, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, there you have it. I've been talking to Marge Ryan, Market Analyst at FuelCell Today. It's been a pleasure. Hope to see you back next year.
Definitely.
The brochures are on the table. Collect up that web address. It's a wonderful source of information. Marge, thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure.
It was great to talk to you. Thank you.
See you next year. We'll be continuing shortly. Up next on stage, we're going to be talking with Klaus Leister, who is from Freudenberg Fuel Cell Component Technologies, and they are going to be talking about the release of their new high-class fuel cell filters. Very exciting topic. Looking forward to it. See you in 1 minute.